Joining us on Facebook and YouTube. We did have technical issues last week, so we apologize for that glitch, and we're back, hopefully, with all systems a go. And we are looking forward to jumping into our conversation. You missed a real humdinger last week, so I hope we can deliver this time, now that you're back. And what we were talking about last week were some of the core tenets of Buddhism and how they relate to our existential experience within the here and the now. And one of the things that we did bring up last week that I think will play nicely into our talk this morning is that Buddha's definition of suffering is often misinterpreted. His first of the Four Noble Truths is dukkha. And that's a Sanskrit word that basically means that you have a wheel with a crooked hub for the axle to go in. And so if you have a dukkha crooked wheel axle hole, then your ride is going to be bumpy and it's not going to be smooth in life. And so Buddha's saying that when you don't have that center aligned with reality, then your life is going to display the disharmony and the dis-ease and the disquiet. Your ride in life is going to be bumpy and troublesome. And so as we look at the spiritual path, we see that this is the first diagnosis, right? The Four Noble Truths, if you don't know, was written as a diagnostic. The Ayurvedic doctors of ancient India would basically say, you got a disease, this is what it is. So you got the etiology as the first noble truth. You have a disease, it's called dukkha. Then the doctor would then say, okay, well, the causes, the etiology of the disease would be that you are craving, you have trishna. The craving is basically because you are misaligned with your real nature. You're blocking your own abundance. And so because we're blocking the nature of our reality, we are depriving ourselves of everything because our reality is all-encompassing, right? So this is the idea that when we block our awareness from our own reality, we crave for what this all-encompassing reality would be giving us in this moment. So we're coming from a place of scarcity. And so that's the symptom. That's what's causing the problem, right? The disease, the symptom. And then he says the cure would be to basically calm the mind, to quiet the mind, to still the mind, to go into a place where you actually start to let go of all of the causes and conditions, the belief patterns, the habit patterns, the impulses that are all connected to this belief system of the false identity, right? So if we're operating as the false identity, we have a whole world in place that supports the reality and the operations of the false identity. So we have to actually quiet and still that. And the way to go about that is to cultivate a lifestyle and a spiritual meditation practice of quieting the mind and cultivating integrity, virtuous behavior, having insight into who you are and what you're doing, insight into the nature of reality. And so this is all the prescription of Dr. Buddha in giving us a way of release from the limitations and the suffering and the dissatisfactoriness of our existence. And so we want to look in light of how this is a universal message and how it's going to play into our discussion this morning as we go into more of a Sufi approach to this corrective process. If you're familiar with Sufism, you know it probably in its generic labeling as the mystical tradition within Islam. But if you ever had your hands on a book by Idris Shah that was written back in the 1960s, he actually comes from a long lineage of Sufi masters. And in Idris Shah's book, The Sufis, he talks about how all of the esoteric brotherhoods and sisterhoods, all of the mystery schools, all of the deep spiritual traditions on the planet from time immemorial have been considered Sufi at their heart. In other words, then Sufism takes on the form within the culture So if it's an Islamic culture, Sufism will take on the form of Islam. If it's a Christian culture, it will take the form of esoteric Christianity, Kabbalah and Judaism, Vedantic teachings within India, et cetera, et cetera. So in other words, the Sufi is the one who pierces the veil of reality and sees beyond the illusion of duality. And so we want to approach Sufism in this way, that it's not a sectarian system within one religious ideology. It's actually the core or heart within all spiritual paths. And so we're going to be looking through the lens in some cases in the Islamic symbology, but it's not completely isolated within that. And so in order to do this, we want to actually open it up to one of the great poet masters of Sufism. And Hafiz is his name. You must know him if you've been coming to this service for any length of time. And Hafiz is a very interesting fellow. When he was a young man, he was born in Persia. He lived in Shiraz, yes, very similar to the wine that maybe some of us like to drink. Shiraz was a very beautiful garden city within Persia. And Hafiz was struck one day when he was delivering baked goods. He was a baker's assistant growing up, struggling to make a living. And when he went to a wealthy mansion to deliver the baked goods, he caught the eye of a beautiful girl who didn't see him. Actually, he saw her, she didn't see him. And he was so awestruck with her beauty that he vowed that he will do anything to win her love. And so one of the things that was given to Hafiz to consider in doing and how to manipulate reality was to go to the grave of a great saint and for 40 days be in a wakeful vigil every night at the grave of the saint. And basically this would give him access to this deeper level of reality, which would then unite his heart with the object of his desire, which was this beautiful girl. So after 40 days at this saint's grave, he would work all day and then go there at night and, just grunted it out, was able to break through the resistances of going to sleep, and he stayed with his intention. And by the 40th night, he was visited then by the angel Gabriel, it says in the legend. And when he saw the beauty of Gabriel, he was so full of wonderment that there was a being of such beauty that it paled, the beauty of the woman paled in comparison to Gabriel. And he then thought, if the angel is this beautiful, how beautiful must God be? And so in his devotion, he realized that he had no desire for the woman. His only desire now was for God. And so he said to Gabriel, because Gabriel said, ask whatever it is you want, because you've done this for 40 days. So now you have the opening. What is it that you desire? He says, I desire only God. And that set Hafiz on this path of deeper spiritual practice. And he became the student of Attar, who was a great Sufi master within Shiraz. And through many, many, many years of practice and devotion to Attar, Hafiz woke up. He came out of the delusion. He pierced the veil. And so I want to read some of the poems of Hafiz this morning to get us through the veil. Because remember, as we say often on Sunday morning, these teachings are designed to elicit an experience. So for many of us, we come here and we're sort of leaning into the conversation, and that's a great thing. But as we lean in, we're oftentimes leaning out. We're actually looking out there to the guy talking at the front of the room. And what I would ask for you to do is realize that this is you talking to you, especially when we start to go into Hafiz, that these are the deeper thoughts and deeper aspects of your own hidden nature coming up. This is what this service is designed for, is to bring to your awareness the potentiality of your own divinity in your transformation. And so the words that we use, the gestures, the energy that comes through in the teaching is all designed to elicit this hatching, this opening, this unveiling. In fact, the Sufis refer to their teaching and the language that they use within the Sufi teachings as the language of unveiling. So this is the intention here, that you actually go within to listen, that you become quiet and still, and you allow these parts of yourself that are in shadow, these parts of your thinking and believing and feeling that are actually blocking the radiance of your own hidden divinity to fall away as we move along on our journey this morning. That there will be an authentic, genuine opportunity to go through, as it says in Zen, the gateless gate. That's the beauty of, again, we'll jump into Zen a little bit. We'll wear our Zen pajamas for a moment. There is a collection of teachings or koans in Zen or Chan Buddhism. It's entitled Wumen Quan. And Wumen Quan means the gateless gate, right? And this gateless gate collection is these ideas, these exchanges between master and student that are designed to shock the mind or to bring you into bewilderment within your rational thinking, so that you have to go outside of your conceptualizing. You have to actually get out of thinking, because thinking limits you and blocks you from going through that gate. And the name of the gate, according to these teachings within the Zen collection, is Wu. In Chinese, Wu means absence, nothing. And so as you listen here this morning, this language of unveiling is designed to have you empty yourself of yourself. To go into a state of abeyance or detachment from what you think. And then as you do this, as you become more proficient at resting within the nothingness or the no thing of this moment, then the gate will open. And in the Chinese Chan Taoist tradition, this gate of Wu, or absence or nothing, is also referred to as the loom of origins. In other words, this is where reality is happening. This is where reality and the whole pattern of creation is occurring. So as you give up these limiting beliefs and these dualistic concepts, and you empty with the nothingness, the no-thingness in the present moment, you'll enter the gate. And if you're paying attention, you'll enter the gate and cross over, and that crossing over gives you access to the behind the scenes, to the energies, the forces, the beings that are really in the presence of divinity. Okay? It's kind of like in the Hermetic tradition of the alchemist, when you see these images maybe of the alchemist crawling on his hands and knees, and he pierces the veil, and he's now behind the veil of nature, and he sees the hidden forces in the angelic realm that actually is orchestrating and moving all things within nature. This is the idea. Back to Hafiz. So this is the first poem given in The Gift. This is the edition that we're looking at now, and it's translated by Daniel Ladinsky. So remember, Hafiz is the poet, and this is what he says in his first poem, Startled by God. Not like a lone beautiful bird, these poems now rise in great white flocks against my mind's vast hills, startled by God, breaking a branch when his foot touches earth near me. So these poems are like great white flocks of birds, and they are startled into flight So these poems naturally exude from his being like perfume. Because the poems, like the white flocks, come out of him when God comes down next to him. And so it's a natural relationship between what Hafiz puts into poetry and the living, direct experience of being near to God. That's why, again, these words are vehicles. They're vessels that carry the elixir or the fragrance of touching the face of the beloved. So the next one we want to share with you this morning, let's eat. Why just show you God's menu? Hell, we are all starving. Let's eat. So coming to this service, we're not giving you the same dry rhetoric of, the old-time religion, a story that you may have heard 1,000 times before. And we're not here talking about something that is outside of you or maybe set within a future that may or may not come to be. Hafiz is saying within this esoteric teaching that you can actually enter the gate and feast at the table of plenty, right here, right now. Right? As it says in A Course in Miracles, only you can deprive yourself of anything. And when you're ready to feast, you won't be interested in just reading menus about God. You'll want the experience of God. You'll want direct connection, right? Intimate relationship. And on that note, when the violin can forgive the past, it starts singing. When the violin can stop worrying about the future, you will become such a drunk, laughing nuisance that God will then lean down and start combing you into his hair. When the violin can forgive every wound caused by others, the heart starts singing. So this is, again, the way through the gateless gate, is forgiving the past, right? Forgiving the wound caused by others, seemingly. It's through this miraculous gift of forgiving that we give to ourselves this divine union, that our mind begins to open up to something truly wonderful. So just like Hafiz saw the most beautiful human creature, and in comparison, the angelic creature was levels of magnitude above that beauty. When we can forgive others of the wounds that we believe that they have given to us, we will be set free of ever being wounded again. This is the idea that we will come to rest in something that is completely indestructible and always protected, and we're always kept safe. And so this is the intimacy that we can either hold back from ourselves or enter into in this moment. And the next step in the entering process is being willing right now, right here, to forgive others, to let them off the hook, to let go. Doesn't mean that they're going to not be who they've been, but it means that you want to go through the gate. You want to enter the garden of delight. Looking for good fish. Why complain about life if you are looking for good fish? and have followed some idiot into the middle of the copper market? Why go crazy if you are looking for fine silk and you keep rubbing your hands against burlap and hemp sacks? If your heart really needs to touch a face that is filled with abundance, then why didn't you come sooner to this old man? For my cheek is the universe's cloister. And if you can make your prayers sweet enough today, then Hafiz will lean over and offer you all the warmth in my body in case God is busy doing something else somewhere. Why complain if you are looking to quench your spirit's longing and have followed a rat into a desert? If your soul really needs to touch a face that is always filled with compassion and tenderness, then why, my dear, did you not come to your friend Hafiz sooner? So again, Hafiz is saying that we are the ones that follow the wrong guidance by our own choosing. And so it's by our own choosing that we can actually stop that and enter into a true direct connection with the beloved when we're ready, when we're no longer willing to delay or stall our spiritual reality from our awareness. We are now ready to follow the one who knows. So this is the other thing too, that God sends guidance in the form of many different types of teachers. That's why, it's beautifully said in A Course in Miracles that, in the Course, Jesus is the voice of the Course. He gives the Course. It's his Course. But he says the teachers of God are legion. They take myriads of forms and myriads of traditions and myriads of cultures. So wherever your inner instrument is keyed, you'll find the true teacher if that's what you're looking for. That teacher in some form that you can relate to will appear and offer the true guidance into the heart of reality. But remember, as Hafiz was just saying in the poem, we oftentimes go after counterfeits. We're looking for silk, so we think. And we're ending up in the markets of burlap and hemp. And we're looking for the gold, and we're amongst the copper. So it's always determined by what you really want. And when you're really ready, reality will dawn in a form that you can follow. Guaranteed. Couple more. We have not come to take prisoners. We have not come here to take prisoners, but to surrender ever more deeply to freedom and joy. We have not come into this exquisite world to hold ourselves hostage from love. Run, my dear, from anything that may not strengthen your precious budding wings. Run like hell, my dear, from anyone likely to put a sharp knife into the sacred, tender vision of your beautiful heart. We have a duty to befriend those aspects of obedience that stand outside of our house and shout to our reason, oh please, come out and play. For we have not come here to take prisoners or to confine our wondrous spirits, but to experience ever and ever more deeply our divine courage, freedom, and light. And so, again, with this journey into the unveiling that we're on this morning, your reason is that conditioning or conditioned part of your mind that has already built a reality structure of what's possible and who you are and what everything means. And it's become, for most of us, a very rigid, reliable structure. And it's through that lens that most of us are always assessing and evaluating what we are, who we are, even the spiritual teaching. Hence the need for this kind of language to obliterate us from having to look through such a small pigeonhole for something so vast and beautiful. And so, like Hafiz says, that it's our duty, if we're here to wake up, to go outside of our house, to go beyond the lip of the rational, beyond the horizon of the known, and step into this moment with wonder like a little child and call to our reason, oh please, please come out and play, so that the reason can come into the sacred dimension and integrate itself so that it can be a fit vessel for the master's use. But within the limiting beliefs, it's more of a hindrance than a help. So you have to at first detach yourself from the rational and the reasonable. And eventually, through practice, that part of the mind will integrate. And then finally here, I have learned so much. I have learned so much from God that I can no longer call myself a Christian, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Jew. The truth has shared so much of itself with me that I can no longer call myself a man, a woman, an angel, or even a pure soul. Love has befriended Hafiz so completely, it has turned to ash and freed me of every concept and image my mind has ever known. So just like Rumi has that beautiful image of the wine press, and the one who wants to wake up, the one who is a sincere seeker, is being crushed by God in the wine press. In other words, these concepts, these images, these beliefs that we have held on to for so long, if we're in these trials within life that are causing us, great crises and shocks and disorientation, you could see this all within the context, if you're on the path, of God basically helping you get out of what's hurting you. And the only thing that can hurt you, as it's beautifully said in A Course in Miracles, only my thoughts cause me pain. Only my thoughts cause me pain. My concepts are my cages. And so when we're in these crises and challenges and difficulties, and we're on the path and we're devoting our life to God and to service and to opening to reality, we oftentimes might get bewildered and think, I thought this was supposed to get better. I thought my life was supposed to work now that I made this choice. And in order to be in the garden of the beloved, you have to let go of what's blocking. And what's blocking are those things that we have so clearly identified with for our life, as our life. And so this wine press is designed to actually free you from yourself. That beautiful saying of Lao Tzu, how will you ever discover yourself until you lose yourself? Lose all that you've ever known. And so this process that we're undergoing right now is that type of reality where we get to give away everything that we are in this moment. Let it go. And get quiet. Find your breath. And whatever's arising, thoughts, memories, beliefs, sensations, feelings, you just allow them to arise, you accept them, you witness that they come from nothing, they abide for a little while, and they go back into nothing and dissolve. Everything has this impermanent quality. And so as you stay in the moment and stay with your breath and stay connected to the wakeful, mindful awareness, you're no longer identifying with anything that's arising. You're allowing it to arise, but you're not that. No labels. Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Jew, atheist, man, woman, pure soul. No labels. You're labelless. And then watch as you begin to move into this practice of letting go and just allowing things to come and go. There'll be other thoughts, other impulses that may come in to really try to hook you and bring you back into identification with the limitations. Watch that. Remember the violin. The violin has to let go of the past and the future in order to hear the song and enter into union with your true self, the joy, the freedom that you are. It's so paradoxical that as we empty, we can then be filled. Oftentimes, we're so neurotic and so desperate and gripped on knowing what we need and thinking we also know how to get or attain what we need, that we never find this fulfillment. And the paradox is when you relax and let go, no longer gripped, no longer identifying as the needy one, and you empty yourself of that, you find yourself naturally entering that gateless gate. And you find your right place within the loom of origins, that you are an ancient being, breathed by the universe, as the universe, coming into awareness of itself. You're not the little self in the little story. That's the veil. And when you're ready to no longer deprive yourself of your glory and your abundance and your love and your light, those veils can start to lift. And what's beautiful, and where we're going now in our conversation, is as the veils begin to lift in you, you must see them starting to lift in the world. And what's there behind the veil and the seemingly normal and everyday occurrences, people and events, as it says within the Sufi tradition, is the face of God. that you actually see God, literally, in plain sight, that no longer do you see the veil of the creature or the physical object, but you see the divinity behind it. That was always there. But because we were misaligned in that dukkha nature, we were misperceiving everything. And we created a web or a matrix of thought and emotion and experience and cause and effect karmic relationships that all related back to the out-of-focus distortion of the self. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And now that we're emptying ourself of all of the distortions, the neediness of that self can also be emptied. That's usually one of the last veils to go, yeah? That we are this self that needs, that wants, that desires something. We don't even know oftentimes if we're really clear with ourselves. Like, write down, like, what is it that I really desire? And it's like, oh, I thought it was something else. It's just something. I desire. I need. And when you really look into the nature of this needy self, it begins to dissolve upon closer inspection. And it was really the arch distorter of your whole life, because your whole life was governed and ruled by getting your needs met and using people for that purpose. And so as we empty ourselves of even the need, he says that too in A Course in Miracles. He says, the first obstacle to peace is the desire to get rid of it. The first obstacle to peace is the desire to get rid of it. And the reason why we want to get rid of peace is because we're not done with the getting concept. We still think there's something to get that's not me. And so this world is used to get our desires met. And so we actually put off coming into the peace of reality because we are still looking to get what we think we lack. And we've already arranged it in our head what it is we need to get. I already know. And so until we get to a pain threshold that is utterly severe, we oftentimes still get up, wobble a little bit, and then get back on the getting. But that pain threshold, once we cross it, we're like, wait a minute, this is just insanity. I can't do this anymore. And so we then allow ourselves to let go of the needy one, the one that's clinging and craving. Remember, that's driving the whole bumpy road that we've been on, according to the Buddha. We believe we're a self that we're not, and this self craves something. And it also has aversions. So there are some of us that are on the journey where we're not so much craving, like we actually learned how to live oftentimes in lack, not getting what we want. We've kind of adopted and adapted that approach that we're satisfied or okay with our lot in life. But we have aversions. And some of the aversions are, I cannot become like my mother. Or this runs in my family and I'm starting to see this patterning in myself and I can't make this my reality. I can't have this be what I end up as. And so we have all these different aversions that also are part and parcel of that same false self. That's why we want to look into our shadows as well as the things that we desire and crave, these fears that we have, the death sentence that we've put upon ourselves, the labels of being broken or having a disorder or a disease. It's just another way that the separate self is staying alive. And so as you can detach from your desires and get off the getting, you can also detach from this mislabeling and wrong thinking of putting yourself into a box of disorder or disease or brokenness. Just for a moment, let that go. What does that feel like to let that go? For many of us, it's been a mantra. It's been the prayer of the heart. Just, the intensity and the fervency of not wanting the disorder or not wanting the disease is what's attracting it. It's all fantasy. You're not that. You're still not that. You've never been that. Stop believing that. And we're being, given this information, and then there's a part of our mind that's like, okay, well, this sounds good. It even feels good right now. Like there's something here that I can actually tune into. Like there's possibility here. I can feel it in my bones. But, it's going to probably not last. I'm going to get up, I'm going to go out, and I'll be back into the usual. And all of these shadow figures will come back into my mind. The shadow figures that tell me that I'm lacking and I need and I have to use my relationships in order to get what fulfills me, which it really doesn't. And I also will be back into the mislabeling and the disorders and all of that other bull. And so what will make the difference? What will be the final stoppage? And this is where, we have to see, just like Hafiz was saying, we have to come out of our house. We have to come out of the reasonable and the rational and the conditioned. And as we do this, like we said, as we keep emptying and detaching and letting go, we will naturally pass through the gate of unveiling and illumination. And as we become more illuminated, like we said, the world will lighten up. We'll start to see through the veils of people and events and things. We'll see the hand, the power, and the presence of God in everything. But how? How do we make that final step where we cross over from this weary, aching world, as he says in A Course in Miracles, to the real world, to the world that's lit with joy and can never be what this aching world is, that this aching world can never touch? How do we do this? Well, if the pain or the willingness is intense, you're ready, you're ripe, you've been, in the wine press. And if you're in the wine press, that basically means that all the avenues in the world that were afforded to you for your ego's desire and fulfillment and journey have now been stopped. They're all dead ends. You realize that there's nothing in this world that you want. It's all a sad play, right? He says, he calls this world in A Course in Miracles, into this dry and thirsty world, hungry and angry creatures come to live. Like we're in a desert. So when you're done with this samsara, with this endless seeking and never finding, you then have to get out of your house. And the only way to get out of your house, according to this teaching of the Course, is you call with love for the other way. You call with love to love. And that's why he says in this passage, when you do that with an unequivocal call, in other words, you're not vacillating. You're not still kind of in the world, but let's try this for a little bit. No, you're done. I'm ready. I see what's before me. Now I'm ready to open up. When I call, he says, love always answers. Being unable to deny a call for help or not to hear the cries of pain that rise to it from every part of this strange world you made but do not want. The only effort you need make to give this tired and aching world away in glad exchange for one you did not make is willingness to learn the one you made is false. The self you made is false. Think about this. Many of us come to this church, come to this service because we're seeking. We're desiring to wake up. And that's very important at first. Like we've been saying, the process goes from choosing unwholesome states and choosing to be in dysfunction to choosing to be in wholesome and healthy states. And as you make that shift, you then attract to you teachings and situations that will increase this wholesomeness and healthy mindedness. And as that gets stronger in your world, in your mind, you begin to tune into increasingly more subtle dimensions within yourself. It opens up the inner world. Right? Wholesome, healthy mindedness brings greater clarity and virtue, and that opens up the subtlety of your inner world. And as the subtlety begins to get clearer and brighter, you go into deep insights. And one of the key insights here is, I am not the self that I thought I was. It's insight. It's not like a belief system that you're now forcing yourself to believe or, choosing to believe because somebody that you trust and like says it. It's insight. I'm not the self I thought I was. It was all smoke and mirrors. This will naturally begin to come when you're calling with love and directly looking at the self you were with this detachment. And so as this facade of a self begins to fade away and dissolve, you'll realize that you're now a finder rather than a seeker. That'll take adjustment. That you've actually had it all along. You are it. You never were without it. And then once that's found, and it's found at your very inner core, like your inmost core, then you're no longer looking to get or crave or grip onto the people and events in your life. That's when the light shows from the inside to the outside, and the real world begins to open up before you in your vision. That's why Jesus says this. In this process, when you're done resisting peace, right? When you get off the getting, you no longer want the getting concept, because that keeps driving you outside of yourself, where you'll never find it. You are it. You've always been it, along with every living thing. But you have to find it at your core. And when you're done seeking for where it can never be found, then you're choosing to be on the path of peace. And then he says, you will first dream of peace. So you're not in reality yet, but you're actually bringing in the echoes of reality, the whispers of reality. You start dreaming in accordance with what is ultimately real, so that your life begins to be infused with these qualities and virtues and characteristics of reality. Peace, fulfillment, laughter, joy, wonderment, celebration, true intimacy, true relationship, transparency, unity. All of this starts to come into your dream, so that you can gradually get into the brightness of reality. So you will first dream of peace and then awaken to it. Your first exchange of what you made for what you want is the exchange of nightmares for the happy dreams of love. Right? God comes near. And when God comes near and, sets his foot down next to you and breaks that branch, all of the white flocks start coming out of you. And then your cheek is the cloister of the universe for others. What would that feel like? To dream only of love and to have it reflected back to you from every living thing. So in these dreams of love lie your true perceptions. For the Holy Spirit corrects the world of dreams. And the dreams of love will then lead you into true knowledge, right? The ultimate truth. And then finally here, wrapping it up, this is the section in chapter 17 called The Beauty of the Real World. Jesus asks this question: can you imagine how beautiful those you forgive will look to you? In no fantasy have you ever seen anything so lovely. Nothing you see here, sleeping or waking, comes near such loveliness, and nothing will you value like unto this, nor hold so dear. Nothing that you remember that made your heart seem to sing with joy has ever brought you even a little part of the happiness this sight will bring to you. Forgiving those. Right? This is how you get combed into God's hair. Right? The violin. You get combed into God's hair by forgiving. And being combed into God's hair means that you utterly integrate with all life. Your atoms, you're breathing in the atoms of others. You're telepathically connected to everything. You're in the network. One of the great scholars of Buddhism, Alexander Berzin, actually refers to Buddha as the network mind. You get put back into the network. And you realize that everything is you. Everything is co-arising. as you. You're combed into God's hair. And it's all love reflecting back. You don't see the shadows. You've forgiven those. That mist has evaporated in your perception. In this vast network of the universal being, there is only the love reflecting back to itself. This loveliness is not a fantasy. It is the real world, bright and clean and new, with everything sparkling under the open sun. Nothing is hidden here, for everything has been forgiven, and there are no fantasies to hide the truth. The bridge between that world and this is so little and so easy to cross that you could not believe it is the meeting place of worlds so different. Yet this little bridge is the strongest thing that touches on this world at all. What is that bridge? Somebody shout it out. Your forgiveness. It's the way through the gate. You're done holding grievances. You're done using this world to hurt yourself. That's why the world looks the way it does. We then take responsibility. I made this up. Only my thoughts can cause me pain. I'm ready to empty myself of that. And this brings us to the bridge, and we cross over. And he says, this little step, so small it has escaped your notice, is a stride through time into eternity and beyond all ugliness into beauty that will enchant you and will never cease to cause you wonderment at its perfection. You know, this notion of forgiveness is very much like Shantideva's path of giving to others and dissolving self-cherishing, right? So we release others by wanting our blessings to be brought to them. We look to bless everyone. And then in that notion of blessing everyone, our gripping and grasping and wanting and needing gets dissolved. By forgiving, we're forgiven. By giving, we receive. By not judging, we're not judged, and we're brought through the gate. And that gate is here now, touching this world and opening up a vision to a version of this world that only love touches, no fear. So finally here, all this beauty will rise to bless your sight as you look upon the world with forgiving eyes. For forgiveness literally transforms vision. It dissolves the veils and lets you see the real world reaching quietly and gently across chaos and removing all illusions that had twisted your perception and fixed it on a self that you were not. The smallest leaf becomes a thing of wonder, and a blade of grass, a sign of God's perfection. Blue bag's going to go around. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can click the donate there, or on YouTube, you can find the link in the comment section, and the church and I greatly appreciate your generosity. blessing the offering with the intent that it be infused with the love and the joy and the peace that is our true nature, and may it bring that into all minds and hearts. And so it is. Good. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Good. Let's seal the deal. You can stand and rise. And as we bring our attention back into the center of the heart, we want forgiveness to be the universal attitude that we have, including the forgiveness of ourselves, where we no longer blame others, we no longer blame ourselves. And in our heart, we can set ourselves free from the burden of blame. And as we do this, we come to realize that we are the one self that we are forgiving. Within and without, drop away. And there is only this perfect mind. And in this state of true understanding, we know that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you for being here, for being you. Course in Miracles tomorrow night, 7:15. We'll see you again. Peace.